Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm making a recipe from isabeleats.com. I've made a few of hers before. I think the last time I made a recipe of hers it was vegan, and this one is not. This one is advertised as gluten-free, and it looks like it is just vegetarian. However, if you want to make it vegan, follow my recipe and just use vegan mayonnaise because that was the only thing I used that was not vegan. So the first thing we're making street corn tostadas. The recipe says Mexican street corn tostadas, but I didn't have enough room for that in my title card, so I'm just calling it street corn, which I've never actually had. So maybe I should have tried that first before making this. I thought street corn was kind of like grilled and sweet, and not canned corn, but this is canned corn, which is fine. It's really good, honestly. I've never had a tostada either, so I was a little bit unsure about what to do for the tortilla, and so I looked up how to make tostadas because I don't know if it's even in her recipe. I think she said to stick it in the oven, and I said, "Oh, that doesn't sound right." I've had issues with putting tortillas in the oven in the past, so I decided to stick it on a skillet. So I just sprayed these very small corn tortillas with vegetable oil and I threw them on the skillet. And the recipe I found said once they start kind of bubbling, you kind of flip them. It's like making regular flour tortillas, only it took a long time because I had to get it stiff. So you want them to be stiff and not malleable at all. And this is me taking several minutes to cook these. I only showed you some of it. So just keep going until they're stiff and keep rotating and flipping them and adding oil if necessary. When I made my leftovers of this recipe yesterday, actually, I stuck the tortilla in our toaster oven and cooked it as if it were, at 400 degrees, like the oven is supposed to do. And I think I did it for 5 or 7 minutes total, flipping it halfway. And it was very good that way, and it took a lot less time. So I'm here to tell you to just do it in the oven. Don't listen to what I thought was ideal doing it on the skillet. Also, I ran out of oil in my skillet, so you can see it's smoking pretty bad right there. But I'm shaking the tortilla to show you that it's not malleable anymore. You do want it to be like you pick it up and eat it like a pizza. It's a plate. It's a corn plate of food. So you're supposed to take a can of refried beans and spread that on the tortillas. I decided to make my own refried beans. This is pinto beans that I cooked earlier. You'll see some dark spots in that because I burned that too. So I burned two things for this recipe. I burned my beans because I had the boil on too high and not enough water. And I kept thinking to myself, oh, I should add more water, but then I didn't because I'm an idiot. So this is only half a can of beans, it's like the equivalent of half a can of beans, which if you're making pinto beans, you can take 3/4 cup of dry beans and then soak that overnight, drain that water, and then boil that for a couple hours, and you've got a can of pinto beans. And then I just kind of divided it in half because I was going to use the other pinto beans for a different recipe, but then didn't. So I I made only half a can of refried beans, and then I put salt and pepper and some cayenne in because when you're making your own refried beans, there's usually lard, which is not vegan, just in case you forgot, and other, like I think onions and stuff too. So I knew I had to spice them up, otherwise it wouldn't taste quite like a can of refried beans. So you're supposed to use red onion, a 1/4 cup of finely chopped red onion. I've probably never bought red onion in my life. I only buy white onions because most of the time when I'm making onions or cooking with onions, they get fully cooked. And I think white onions or yellow onions are good for that. And I prefer the taste, and I probably also the price. I'm pretty sure the reason I buy white onions all the time is because that's what was cheap when I was in college starting to cook, and that's just what I'm used to cooking with. And I know how the food is going to turn out with the white onions, so I just keep buying them because they're cheap and I already have the correct expectation. If you're enjoying this, please like, share, and subscribe. I do see red onions a lot in recipes when you don't cook the onions, so that would probably be a better bet. Although I will say, even with the raw white onions, I found this very delicious and I didn't think that the onions detracted from the flavor at all. Then you're going to want to drain a can of corn and take the corn and put that in the bowl. And now you're going to want 1/4 cup of mayonnaise. Like I said, this one's not vegan. I've never bought vegan store, like manufactured mayonnaise. I've made my own using aquafaba, and that's pretty good, except that it separates after a day. Um, so that's why this isn't vegan. So you're also supposed to take a 1/3 cup of finely chopped cilantro. And I do not buy fresh cilantro because most of it usually goes to waste. So I started buying cilantro paste and keeping it in the freezer. And it looks like it was too close to the vent or whatever it is that makes the stuff cold. And it's a lot harder to squeeze out than it usually is. So I'm doing my best to squeeze out some cilantro. I'm also nowhere near planning on using a 1/3 cup because I have that thing where cilantro tastes like soap. However, it only tastes like soap when I eat a lot of it. If I don't eat too much, it's not like I don't notice it. So we're going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then, I don't think this is even in the recipe. No, it's not. We're going to just spice it up with some Valentina or any old hot sauce you have lying around. The recipe also says to squeeze in a juice of 1/2 of a lime, and I was going to use like a tablespoon of lemon juice, but I ran out, as you may have seen from the recipe where I made lemon strawberry blondies. So there's no lemon juice or lime juice in this, but at this point you could be adding that. Then stir everything up really nicely. The recipe says to use 2 tablespoons of cotija cheese, and I don't know what that is. And all I had was some vegan cheese slices. So I took one slice and they crumble pretty easily. And I thought that was probably the effect that the original recipe was going for. So then add your fake cheese and stir it up. So a quick search says that that kind of cheese, cotija, I hope I pronounced it right, is similar to Parmesan, but not the grated Parmesan, like the Parmesan that comes in a big triangle. So you can take that or any other kind of white crumbly cheese if you wanted to use real cheese. Now we're going to pop one of our hard disc-like tortillas on a plate. Add some refried beans, and I should have made this a little creamier. What I probably could have done was added some water or even reserved some of the bean juice that was cooking in it and thrown this in the food processor because it was pretty crumbly. And what I ended up doing after making this, when I decided to get my leftovers prepared, is I just poured all the pinto beans and the smashed up refried pinto beans in the bowl with the corn. These aren't technically refried; they're just pinto beans smashed up. I'm now realizing that. And then the recipe says to put 3 spoonfuls of the corn mixture on top. And then, like I said earlier, you're going to pick it up and eat it like a pizza. So this is what it looks like. It's pretty hearty, I would say. And there's my husband stealing the bowl back there because he wanted some too. Um, the corn tostadas are really flavorful and spicy and tasty, and I like that it's a bit healthier. There's no major cholesterol, gluten free, and it was really good. I think I'm not a fan of the tostada method of eating. I would prefer maybe just making a tortilla of this or a burrito of this, but it was really awesome. Hope you enjoyed this recipe, everyone. Happy eating!